Have you ever stood at the gas pump watching the numbers climb and wondered what's really going on? It's a question that touches all of our wallets. We hear constantly that the United States is a global energy powerhouse, a titan of oil production. So, if the US is one of the world's leading producers, why do we still see gas prices at home fluctuate so wildly? And even more puzzling, why do we import millions of barrels of oil every day from other countries? It feels like a paradox, doesn't it? Alright, let's unravel this. Here's the deal. The US absolutely pumps out a staggering amount of oil. We're talking over 13 million barrels every single day. This production boom, largely driven by the shale revolution in places like the Permian Basin, has been historic. To put that into perspective, in recent years, the US has consistently outpaced traditional oil giants like Saudi Arabia and Russia, claiming the title of the world's top crude oil producer. Logically, you'd think that means cheap gas and total energy independence, right? That we could just use what we produce. Well, the reality is far more complicated. Not quite. The secret isn't in the oil we produce, but in its. It all comes down to the specific type of oil we're pulling from the ground. See, most of the oil from American soil, especially from those shale formations, is a premium grade known as light sweet crude. It's light because it has a low density and flows easily, and sweet because it has very low sulfur content. This makes it less corrosive and simpler to refine into high-value products like gasoline. But here's the twist. The US refining system, particularly the massive, complex refineries concentrated along the Gulf Coast, wasn't primarily built for this high-quality domestic oil. Many of America's most critical refineries, especially along the Gulf Coast, are marvels of industrial engineering. But they're also products of a different era. These sprawling complexes were built or significantly upgraded decades ago, based on a long-term bet on a specific type of oil: heavy, sour crude. What does that mean? Heavy refers to its high density and viscosity. It's thick, almost like molasses. Sour means it has a high sulfur content, which makes it corrosive and more complicated to refine. This crude is inherently more challenging and expensive to process. So why build multi-billion-dollar facilities for the difficult stuff? For a long time, the economics were simple. Heavy, sour crude was abundant and, most importantly, cheap. It was readily available from major producers like Venezuela, Mexico, and nations in the Middle East. US refiners invested heavily in complex machinery, like cokers and hydrocrackers, specifically designed to break down these tough, heavy molecules and scrub out the sulfur. This investment allowed them to turn a cheap, low-quality input into high-value products like gasoline and diesel, capturing a healthy profit margin. Then, the shale revolution completely changed the game. Thanks to fracking and horizontal drilling, US oil companies started unlocking vast reserves of a totally different kind of oil: light, sweet crude. It's the opposite of what the refineries were built for. It's low in density, flows easily, and has very little sulfur. You'd think this would be great news, a higher quality, domestically produced resource. But it created a fundamental mismatch. Running this light crude through a complex, heavy crude refinery is like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. The sophisticated, expensive equipment designed for heavy oil is underutilized, making the whole process inefficient and less profitable. The refinery's output gets skewed, producing less of the high-demand products it was optimized for. Because these refineries are still optimized to handle heavy crude, a strange paradox emerged. To keep their complex machinery running profitably, they still need to import that heavy sour oil from abroad. This leads to a seemingly nonsensical trade situation. The US exports huge volumes of its own high-quality light crude to refineries in Europe and Asia that are better suited to process it. At the same time, tankers carrying heavy crude from Canada, Latin America, and the Middle East are arriving at US ports to feed our own domestic refineries. It's like an apple-growing region building a massive, state-of-the-art factory that can only make orange juice. To keep the factory running, they have to sell their beautiful local apples on the global market, and then import oranges from far away. It's a logistical loop that seems counterintuitive, but it's dictated by the machinery you have on hand. And this physical mismatch is amplified by the realities of global finance. Oil isn't just a physical commodity, it's one of the most actively traded financial assets in the world. The price you pay for gasoline isn't just determined by how much oil is being pumped in Texas, it's set on a global stage, influenced by geopolitical tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, economic data from China, and production decisions made in Riyadh. This global market dynamic means that even if the US produces more oil than it consumes, it doesn't insulate consumers from global price shocks. The price of oil is determined by the delicate balance of international supply and demand, a force far bigger than any single nation's output. It's a common question. If America is producing record amounts of oil, why are we still so vulnerable to the global market? The truth is, even if we produced enough oil to cover every single one of our needs, we're still part of a deeply interconnected global system. Think of it this way: a political crisis in the Middle East or a pipeline disruption in another major producing region creates a supply shock. Suddenly, there's less oil to go around. Countries that relied on that supply now have to find it elsewhere, increasing competition on the open market. This global bidding war drives up the benchmark prices like Brent and West Texas Intermediate, which dictate the cost of crude oil for everyone, including US refineries. Then there's OPEC+, the powerful cartel of oil-producing nations. When they decide to cut production to stabilize or increase prices, their goal is to maximize their own revenue. Their decisions can instantly tighten the global supply, and those ripple effects inevitably reach the pumps here at home, regardless of how much oil we're drilling. So let's quickly recap the core issues. First, as we've discussed, there's the refinery mismatch. Our infrastructure was largely built for heavy imported crude, not the light sweet crude from our own shale boom. Second, oil isn't sold in a national bubble, it's a commodity traded on a massive worldwide stage. The price is set by global supply and demand, so why not just upgrade the refineries? It's a monumental task. We're talking about re-engineering entire facilities, a process that takes years and costs billions of dollars per refinery. And there's a bigger question for investors. Does it make financial sense to pour that much capital into fossil fuel infrastructure when the world is slowly but surely pivoting towards renewable energy? For many, it's a risk that's simply too big. This is why the import-export dance continues. We sell our abundant light crude to countries whose refineries can handle it, and we buy the heavy crude our own refineries need. It's a complex, but currently necessary balancing act. So the next time you're at the pump, remember that the price you see is a cocktail of factors. It's not just about drilling at home, it's about the specific chemistry of the oil, the specific technology of the refinery, the decisions of traders in New York and London, and the geopolitical chess moves of nations thousands of miles away. It's a tangled global web, and we're all caught in it. It's a lot to take in, but understanding this picture is key. If you found this deep dive helpful, hit that subscribe button for more breakdowns on the systems that shape our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.